my name is Carla Kelly, and I'm here with Dr. Zach McMains, and we are going to discuss some of Chillicothe School District's transportation and busing systems. So it's your first year here, Dr. McMains, and I'm just throwing you in there with what you've seen so far. So literally, 5-6 months you've been in this new position, or a full-time position. Chillicothe just had it part-time. And you have so many responsibilities, really. Transportation and busing being the subject and one of your main ones. So just your thought, or off of here, I want the pros and the cons of how you see our transportation. Is it, in I guess the real world, is it called transportation system or busing?
Yeah, I mean, that's what our funding source
Funding
should be.
called
It'd be transportation, funding for transportation, so we'll call it transportation.
Good and bad.
Pros would be, we have a really good staff. We have a really good group of bus drivers. Terry and Beth, Terry Mammon and Beth Willard in the bus barn. They do a great job, and I know both of them are probably towards the end of their career, within the next 2 or 3 years, that they're probably both gonna be gone. And we're gonna have a lot of trouble replacing them. And the bus drivers, they are a really, really good group of guys and ladies. Have not had any issues with them. They're very positive. They have a really, really tough job. Especially some of the routes. Some of the routes are a little bit more difficult than others just because of the kids that are on there and the clientele. But we put, our best drivers on those routes, and they are able to handle those kids, and we don't have as many referrals as you might have. I would say those are our biggest pluses. There might be a few more cons.
Right, sure.
We
hard.
Came upon financial issues right before Dr. Barnes got here, so about 8 years ago, and they cut some routes, 5 routes, I believe. So that's 5 buses. We also had that bus fire. That took 8 of our brand new buses, and we only were able to replace 2 of them with the insurance. There was a little snafu with the insurance, so we didn't get to replace brand new buses. So that leads to another issue, and then our bus fleet's pretty old. We have at least two buses that have 350,000 miles. They're still safe, they still pass inspection, but we would like for our students and for our faculty who are sponsors of trips and things that go on trips to have a little better mode of transportation than an old worn out 350,000 mile bus.
That is something that I didn't even think about. I purely think of transportation to school and to home, but they are used a large amount for field trips and such.
Yeah, we
Wear and tear.
I have to go back and look at it, but there are thousands and thousands of miles put on those buses for trips. I think we run about, I want to say 2,000 miles a day. Is that what we run about on average? I think it's about 2,000 miles a day. That's the entire 16 buses that we have. They run about 2,000 miles.
And there
a
is
day.
16
routes at this point. There are 4 trip buses on top of that we can use in the afternoon or during the day if we have stuff. But right now there's 16 routes that we run. We had 15 last year. We added 1 this year. That helps a lot. And hopefully if we do pass this levy in the spring, we're able to add a new, or at least a gently used bus every year and try to get some of those older buses out of the fleet.
What's an average, this isn't on there, but what is an average cost of a new bus?
80,000 is a new one, and then about half that for a gently used one. 30,000 miles to 100,000, you get one for about half.
And that will last 10 years, 2 years?
Well, for the diesel engines will run 250, 300,000 pretty easily. It's just the seats and everything, they get worn out. And that's a problem that we're gonna see, is that half of our fleet's really old. Part of it's pretty good, half of it's pretty old. And as good as Terry is, he has trouble keeping up with the maintenance. We'll drop a bus, I don't wanna say once a week, but here recently, it's been about once a week. We have to take one off a route because something goes wrong. It could be a crossing arm, it could be like the horn doesn't work. It's all that stuff. And you have to make sure for safety purposes that's good. My worry is that if we're not able to keep up with that, we're gonna have to make a decision to sell all of our buses and go with contracted services. And once you do that, you can never go back, because you can't afford to buy 16 buses in one pile. Unless we hit the lottery or for some reason someone puts 18 windmills in our backyard, then we might be okay because we have a lot of money. But I don't think that's going to probably happen anytime soon.
Not soon.
Right.
Not soon. Never know.
I did survey the parents, and we'll talk about that, I know that here in a
Yeah.
second. Some of the concerns they had were some inconsistency in times. The elementaries I know have some concerns that, we say that we're dismissing at 3:00. Well, some of those kids don't get on the bus until 4:45. So there's 45 minutes of supervision, and that's
Yeah.
after contract time for teachers. That to me right now is one of my main concerns, is getting our dismissal and pickup, or excuse me, drop off and dismissal times consistent, so that everyone's able to do the things after school or before school that they're supposed to be able to do. If that's planning, if that's, looking at whatever it is.
At the end of the day, take a breath.
Right, get ready for the next day and not have to stay till 4:30 or whatever, because you've been supervising, 150 screaming kindergartners
For a little.
45 minutes to an
Yeah,
hour.
45 minutes.
Right.
But yes, we can go right into that. So that's kind of what prompted this interest for me.
Mhm.
You sent out a survey, and I wanted to be specific. I know it was sent out to all of, all the buildings.
It
Is
was
that
sent out,
correct?
it was sent out to every parent in the district.
Every
I
parent.
just sent it out through SIS.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was my question.
So I was
because
able,
know that you sent.
so you can send out emails through SIS, you know
Right,
that, you do
right.
that. So I have the ability to do that pre-K through 12. And so I just sent one to every, I don't know, it was like 2,000 emails I think I sent out to parents with that link to the survey. We had a pretty good return. I think we had almost 700 people respond to it, so.
What prompted, I'll go back to that, you're on the right track, but as I listened and now I'm curious, what prompted that survey? Yes, you knew there were problems with our transportation, but did you, as a new employee, a new assistant superintendent, come in and prioritize transportation, curriculum, and then prioritize of I need data, I need information? What prompted the survey in the beginning to
Well,
parents?
you're right, I did notice some issues, and first off, I started talking to Terry and Beth about some stuff, and they would give me some information, but, I wanted to get it from a parent's perspective about if what I'm seeing is actually an issue. If it's not an issue, I'm not gonna mess with it. If it's not a problem, I'm not gonna mess with it. And from that survey, I'm not saying that I think things are awful and terrible. I think
No.
that we would survive, and we would be just fine, and the kids would get to school, and everyone would
I
still
agree.
be happy if things stayed the same for the rest of the time that you and I are here. But I always look for ways to make things better for
Sure.
our staff and students, and that was just something that I felt like we
Big
can
issue.
probably make a change, and a quick one, without too much skin in the game, meaning there's probably just a few adjustments we have to make and look at maybe a different set of eyes and looking at it. So I always like to get input from parents, it never hurts. And in fact, whatever that survey told me doesn't matter, because the parents feel like they're being heard. And that's one thing when I had the advisory board, overwhelmingly, or I would get an email from the parents saying, thank you for even asking if we had an issue. And so they felt like they were heard, and that's money in the fight bank, just doing that. So
Yes.
regardless if I ever got anything from the survey, which we did, there's a couple things on there that I was really surprised about.
What were you most surprised about? That's funny, you even use that word, most surprised.
That people didn't care. You brought it up earlier about their elementary kid on with the middle school or high school. They really didn't care, because we're already doing that with 9 of our 7 buses. Our country buses, actually we have more country buses than we do have town buses. Even though our town buses carry a lot more kids than our country routes. Our country routes are just so far away. Our district, if you ever look on a map, makes kind of a weird S.
We have,
And
it's
it's
crazy.
really from north to south, it's a haul. And then you have Wheeling way over here to the east.
That you have to
And so,
provide
yeah, and
transportation.
it spreads us
Yes.
out, and if we had 5 more buses, it wouldn't be a big deal. But we do, so those buses end up traveling a great distance, so they have to put those K-12 kids on there, and.
So you were surprised that, I'm sorry, I wanna make sure I heard, that their kid, an elementary kid being on a bus with a high schooler wasn't really concerned?
The majority of the people said that they were not concerned. There was a chunk, like I think 20%, that said, yeah, that would be an
Sure.
issue for me.
But for the most part, it
For
was.
the most part, it was
Yeah, I'm
not.
surprised at that too.
For the most part, it was not. Yeah, I figured, everyone's gonna be up in arms about that if we would, because that was one
I'm a
of the,
parent, I would be, yes.
a possible solution, is when we looked at the numbers, we thought maybe we could go from a 2-tier, meaning we do secondary first and elementary second, like what your daughter was talking about.
Right.
So we do all those kids first, if we could do everyone at one time, and then go drop them all off.
Yes.
I don't know if we're gonna be able to pull that off with the existing fleet. It would be very, very close. I think it would be hit or miss every day depending on who rode.
I think
And you can't,
I think some of our buses would be too full. So what we're looking at doing, this next week, actually, I talked to Terry today, is we're gonna look at our start and stop times for all 5 of our buildings.
okay, and that's what I had, so what is, you're just leading right,
Yeah.
like, what's your plan of action?
I think that's probably gonna be the easiest
thing. It's not gonna be easy in that, it's gonna take some problem solving, and we're gonna have to get some input from some different people, administrators, teachers, parents also. But we can't, essentially all 5 of our buildings start and stop at the same time. They're within a
Essentially,
couple minutes of
yes,
each other.
minutes, yes.
Which is ludicrous in that from here to Dewey is not 3 minutes away. So how are you gonna drop these kids off here and still get those kids to school? Well, you drop them off here at 7 o'clock.
Yep.
Which then you have an hour when they're here an hour before school starts, and at this level, they don't probably require as much supervision,
They
but
don't.
it's
They're
still not a
here.
good idea to have kids here an hour. Oh, what time do you guys have to be here?
We have to be here at 7:30,
Right.
but most of us are here by 7:15, but there's always kids.
But you
in.
don't have a guaranteed person there's someone that's gonna be supervising kids at 7 o'clock. You guys might all decide one day to show up at 7:30, and I know Dan and Jill are here early, but you never know if,
Exactly
there's
right.
gonna
You
be
have
someone
them
there
here
watching
at least an hour
you
before.
can't expect Johnny to stop his job and sit there and watch them in the cafeteria. So anyway, that's an issue. So either we go elementary or secondary first, but someone's gonna have to start a little earlier. And so what we're gonna do is we have taken each of the drivers, and they've written down what time they leave the bus barn, when they pick up their first kid, all the way to when they drop off their first students. They've time marked that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look and see if we can say, maybe the high school starts at 8, and maybe the middle school starts at 8:15, and then maybe Dewey starts at 8:20. Whatever we can do. Those are fictitious or arbitrary numbers I threw out there, or times. But so we can drop kids off, and then the end game is that we're not dropping them off so early. We're not picking kids up in the country so early as well. And at the end of the day, if we say we're getting out at 3 o'clock, all the kids are gone around 3 o'clock. They might walk out the door, and they're not requiring supervision after 3 o'clock. They're out, they're getting on the bus, and they're
And it's
going
done.
home.
Wow.
That's what we wanna do.
That's the
That's the ultimate goal.
Ultimate goal.
That's the ultimate goal for me at this point. That's as far as the first thing that I wanna impact is, let's get that straightened out. Then we can start looking at routes and getting routes more efficient, and maybe requiring less time on the road. But I think our routes are pretty good.
Yeah.
There are some redundancies, there are some buses that go by schools when they can drop off. I don't know that you can fix that. I don't know that us dropping off is gonna not, it's weird in that I don't wanna say it's a butterfly effect, but it kinda is. Every time you make a change,
Something else
affects-
will happen.
it affects a whole bunch, it's a ripple, it affects a
Yes,
bunch of other
that's an
things. So
excellent point.
I don't think that, a lot of the parents in the advisory committee said, well, they drive right by my house and I don't pick my kid up. Well, they're probably going somewhere else that they don't understand.
No, no.
But if we could fix some of the things that, like I said, the drop off and the pickup times, with just the timing and the efficiency of it, as well as looking at maybe some ways to communicate with parents when buses are late. I know there's we're looking at doing even a different routing system that the buses will have essentially a GPS tracker where I can look on my phone, have an app as a parent and say, hey, the bus is right around the corner, you need to get out there at the stop type
Wow.
thing. So they know where the bus is too. Those cost money, but we
Always money.
could trade some things that we're spending some things on right now that probably would come out in the wash if it'd be even, so.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It sounds like it's an improvement plan. It'll be ongoing. But as I say, there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem, thank you.